National headline inflation rate in Nigeria as the CPI accelerated for the fifth month to 22.22% in April 2023, well, reaching a nearly 18-year high following the 22.04% recorded in the previous month. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, food inflation rate in April 2023 hit 24.61% on a year-on-year basis, which was 6.24% higher compared to the rate recorded in April 2022 at 18.37%. The report also revealed that surge in inflation rate is attributed to persistent food shortages. Food prices in the country have been rising due to the naira depreciation against the dollar and the continued ripple effect of the Russia and Ukraine war. Joining me via Zoom to look at this is a food security expert, Africanfarmer Mogaji. It's good to see you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Tolu. Good to hear from you also.
Yes, let's start with this food pricing in the country and, of course, this consistent spike and elements fueling the surge. Take us through this. What is happening? This is going to change all our projections.
Well, yes, it's going to change our projections, but sometime, I think February when I was on your show, I did predict all those things happening. It's an election year. This is just constant. This happens every election year when we're having people coming beyond new administration, beyond the headsmen, Naira crunch and co. But this is expected to happen. But climate change also is adding to it. But yeah, with the proper planning and the new administration, if they have the right team on board, I believe we would get out of this. But it's really biting. And sometime, I think February also, Food and Agriculture Organization did mention that about 25 million Nigerians, would not have food. And the Naira crisis has worsened it, affecting all sectors from eggs, all livestock, all crops, everything is being challenged right now, which gives the new administration a huge challenge to surmount. But it's still going to be like this for another 2 months. There's almost nothing we can do except we open the borders, and it will worsen it long term.
Well, that's worrisome. And you just brought the big one there, the cash crunch. The fallout of that cash crunch is being felt across all sectors. I know I spoke to the chairman of the egg, that's the Poultry Association, and I know what he told me about the glut that is being witnessed. Tell us about other sectors, what they face with regards, as in an agricultural space, what they face with regards to that cash crunch, the effect on their businesses.
Almost in fact, I said the CBN did not work with the data they have in their development finance department. Because development finance works a lot with agriculture, and they understand that the Nigerian agriculture sector is fully cash-based. Except for the big companies, everybody does cash. The laborers collect cash, the buyers collect cash, the agri-inputs collect cash, everybody collects cash. And, from inputs, importation, name it, to logistics, it's just very challenging. We'd have policies somersault over the years, logistics. I did share some time ago from Gombe, Kano and Co to Lagos was 500,000, 400,000 is minimum 1.1 million just for logistics, minimum. And even labor, we do, especially in the southwestern part of the country, we do have most of our labor, about 70% of the labor coming from Togo and Benin Republic. They no longer come into the country because the value of Naira as against their currency is really down. So we don't have labor. Input is very expensive, and we couldn't even pay them because it's cash. So we've not had it very good in the sector since almost post-COVID, immediately after COVID, policy somersault. But yeah, farmers are always hopeful. People in the agribusinesses are always hopeful, and we're thinking that the new administration will not come up with like your former guest, 3, 4, 5 agendas. We have known what will work, and we know what will not work. We know the huge challenges with anchor borrowers, and we know the positives with the GES under President Ebele Jonathan. We know what works, we know what does not work. We just need to integrate these two and not come up with another name, and so we can get things going. Nigerians are having it really hard. Recently, the tomato Ebola, the tuta absoluta, it's ravaging most of the states in the north that produce tomatoes. And so a basket of tomatoes as of today is 60,000, fluctuates between 60 and 65. And ideally, around this time, you have the product go expensive. But with the outbreak of the Tota Absoluta insect, it's 60, 65, and it's likely to peak end of June. So we're looking at a 70,000 naira as against the 50,000 that I projected in January, February. So it's not looking good. We need the new administration to have the right team that understands, the value chain. And if they are able to get the right team in place, I can tell you this, will be gone. It will be like magic. I strongly believe with the right team. When I mean right team, I mean people, boots on the ground that understand the sector. It will be an economic miracle in a space of 3 to 6 months.
I would say that the farming or the agricultural sector have gotten a lot of support, and you alluded to that while in your submission. The Anchor Borrower scheme, a lot of focus, fertilizer supply, a lot. We can go on and on with what's happening in that sector. But would you agree with me that we are not getting enough returns from what has been invested? Would you agree?
I like, you are a media expert, so we're not getting enough is different from we're not getting, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say we are getting 3 compared to what we should get. The investments that is being put out that has come into the agri sector is huge, phenomenal, but the result is next to zero. Almost everything is implementation. I would say this, the CBN, the leadership, I would talk about MFLA now. The CBN governor means well. He has put in a lot in terms of trying to make things work. But the CBN as a whole, in terms of working with the ministries that have the mandate, that has not happened. The result we're not seeing today is because CBN has not worked with Ministry of Agriculture. Anybody saying otherwise is not true. So the new administration needs to know that if you don't involve the right parastatals, this thing will not work. The CBN meant well, but the result is you don't have boots on the ground. So having boots on the ground is what will make things work, and having the right stakeholders in the value chain. So, when we see programs being put together, interventions, money voted for various sectors, I have said this, we don't see logistics in it. We don't see the middlemen. All interventions want to strangulate the middlemen. They see the middlemen as the Hebrew players. But when these interventions don't work, farmers only rely on the middlemen who have been consistent with farmers for over 50 years. So it's high time we should bring the middlemen as a crucial stakeholder. And so when we work with them, give them some credit line in the banks, put them into structures, then we will be able to have a free flow. So some bad politicians, I put to use the word bad politicians, manipulate this unstructured system and say, food will not come from one region to the other. It's a function that we have left the critical people out, which are the middlemen. And almost every administration, they mislead them to let them know that the middlemen are the demons in the sector, but the middlemen are the angels to the farmers. But they take advantage. They don't have the funds to be able to operate at a larger capacity, to be able to scale. Many of them are not schooled, and when it's a lot of work, we're not willing to do it. And also, cooperatives. Cooperative system in the agricultural sector in Nigeria is almost practically dead. And in the developed climes, the US, in Netherlands, name the developed world, it is the farmer cooperatives that still hold that economy together. And I would like to point this out, we're quick also generally when you are hearing reports now They will say, oh, CBN did not do the right thing, government staff did not do the right thing. But we forget to point the blame also at the associations. Every intervention of government since 1999 has actively involved all the associations. Don't let me mention any particular one now, but the products, for like the poultry, for livestock, for crops generally, government involves all of them. So if we're saying, and that's the reports out there, the associations are blaming government, and government always gets them involved. So it means that the new administration needs to work outside that three, make it into a square instead of a triangle now, and bring cooperatives in. Let us form new cooperatives and come back. When Nigeria was working, it was the cooperatives working that government was working with. So that cooperative is crucial, and youth engagement is very crucial. If this is not what the new government is about to roll out, it's going to be a major crisis at hand. Don't forget, currently it's not raining with the frequency and the volume it should. That's why it's predicted that there's going to be heavy floods, because in another 2 months, the rain will be too much. So we are in for heavy rainfall that will destroy things. And so the administration needs to have the right networks. I always say this, fortunately, the president elected a turnaround manager. But a turnaround manager as he is, there are a lot of moving parts in the agricultural sector that he must just pay attention to. If he pays attention to that moving parts, that things will change, climate change will change any plan. Once we have that, and we have like 4 scenarios in place, and CBN will be held responsible, Ministry for Finance will be held responsible, Ministry for Water Resources will be held responsible. When people will be held responsible, we will feed Nigerians very fast.
Interesting stuff. I like that, African farmer. You already set an agenda for the agricultural space. Interesting stuff. You've taken my next question already, so I'll let that go. But finally, many say we've not put our best foot forward looking at issues around processing, value addition, storage. I know we've gone this route before, me and you talking about this, but in the context of the new administration, what can be done? What are the quick wins in this space as we wrap up this segment of the show?
Quickly, foreign policy is crucial. We should have a cassava foreign policy. We should have a yam foreign policy. We should have a sweet potato foreign policy. When we have a foreign policy, that opens up export. The private sector will put in money because most companies are bleeding the $1. So when the government is deliberate about that foreign policy, it will help other governments, foreign governments, to know where they can support us so we can trade together. When that is done, then the other local conversations will fall in shape, because there's a fight to grab Nigeria. Everybody wants a pie in Nigeria, especially with the new administration. I mean, countries now. So if we don't have foreign policies to have a conversation with them, there will be issues. And we don't need it. We just need some people who understand how to have this communication and back-end work on it. But our comparative advantage is what we should work on. Yam, cassava, potatoes, tomatoes, everything we are 1 to 7 ranking in Africa is what we should focus on. When we focus on that, things will go well. And I would say this, the new administration should please serve dundu, that's fried yam, to foreigners coming, and not like enough of pasta and all those things. We should do local. We should be able to give them corn. We should be able to give them what is called adalu. There's what is called ego, that is corn. We should be able to present our local foods. When we drive it locally, then others will buy it, corporates will do it. We've done it at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce before when I was chairman. We were serving gari and kuli kuli in official meetings, and foreigners went for gari and kuli kuli first, and with boiled corn. What I'm saying is that until we begin to eat local, wear local, we will not be able to scale across board.
Interesting way. It's a good way to live it. Yes, buy Nigeria, follow our country, invest in this country. I think that is what you're saying. And made in Nigeria, what we have here, let's embrace it. Let's allow others also embrace it. And enough of bringing all of the stuffs from abroad. Well, let's see how it is. But I would also add that we also need to meet standards. But that will be a topic for another day, because, sometimes to put our materials, our foodstuff on the shelf, it has to be competitive. Thank you so much, Africanfarmer Mogaji. It's always great talking to you, food security expert. Do have a great weekend.
Thank you.